Welcome back to another episode of Riqueza podcast. I'm your host, Yolanda Verde. Now, today we're going to be talking about debt and our mindset around debt and how it impacts our life, our credit, and my own experiences around having credit card debt. So you can see that my wall is now white and it's not that tan color. We painted this whole entire space. I think it was like last week. We're going to put in wallpaper and everything like that, make it cute. And then also I'll have multiple recording spaces. So this is at my desk. I'm recording at my desk because I'm really lazy and I didn't want to set up over there. For those who are listening, you might not even care. But for those who watch the YouTube video, make sure to watch it and subscribe. So to get into the conversation, why do we constantly feel overwhelmed and anxious around our debt? Now, I was actually looking at some statistics today as I was listening to Bloomberg News. I've been really into Bloomberg these days. I've been listening and watching Bloomberg and the news for the last maybe 2-3 weeks. So really paying attention to what's been going on. And because of inflation, we have a lot of consumer debt here in the United States. We also know that America is in debt. So it's like, everyone's in debt these days. But currently the data shows, and it was announced today, the NY Fed announced that consumers, which are individuals, have about $1 trillion of credit card debt. Okay, that's the highest amount of debt we've ever reported here in the United States for Americans. Secondly, the average interest rate on credit cards right now is about 20.92%. which is also the highest level of interest rate recorded. Now, you might already get anxiety just listening to this because, interest rate is a big factor to credit card debt and how we even pay it off. Let's say you owe $18,000 and you have like a 25% interest rate. It's like over $400 that you're paying monthly, just your credit cards on interest. That's not your minimum payment. That's just interest. Now, when you think about the larger scale, everyone's currently struggling with debt. Inflation last year was 7 to 9%. We saw it, in the average of 5 the beginning of the year, and then now it's getting down to 3%. The goal ideally with inflation is it to be 1 to 2%. And inflation matters in this whole entire equation of debt because inflation is the thing that impacts our spending, cost of living, right? Cost of goods. And if things are getting more expensive and if our salaries are not growing at the rate of inflation, meaning that your salary is being increased by 8, 9%, 5%, whatever inflation is at the time period, then essentially your cost of living is not matching up your salary growth. So therefore, you have to use your credit cards, right? And that's why we're seeing $1 trillion of consumer debt, the highest level of debt. And this all started after the pandemic. So now I talk to a lot of people in the DMs and the community, in my comments and my videos. They're constantly telling me, Leah, how I'm going to pay off all this debt? I'm overwhelmed. I have $4,000 of credit card debt. I have $10,000 of credit card debt. I have X amount of credit card debt. And then student loans are coming back in October. How am I going to survive? There's a lot happening right now. And economists, I just want to talk more about like the economy and how this is important, is that economists say that because of the high level of consumer debt, inflation, student loans, the impact on interest rates, right? Because the reason why these interest rates are so high for loans and debt is because the Fed has continued to increase interest rates. Currently, interest rates are around 5% for high yield savings account, which is a good thing. But for credit cards and loans and stuff like that, we're seeing 7%, 8% for home loans. The average for credit cards, 20%. So it's a big deal because then it trickles down to us, right? How much we pay to these banks in order to borrow money. So economists have been saying that they were thinking that by end of this year, we were going to have a recession. Now they're thinking at 2024, just because the Fed continues to increase interest rates and they still want to plan on doing so in order to bring down inflation. That's what happens. When you increase interest rates, you reduce spending power, right? Because no one wants to lend anymore. No one wants to get a loan because it's too expensive. So that's kind of like the theory behind all of that. And it's so important that we know this because us as consumers, us as individuals are living this day to day. We're feeling the impact of inflation and ¿Cómo compramos la comida, right? We saw that huevitos, $7, right? We have to go to the granja now to get it for like $2, right? We have seen this in cost of living, rent going up, mortgages going up, obviously, because of interest. So everything is accumulating, everything is adding up, and therefore it's going to credit cards. Now, the anxiety that we feel towards credit cards and everything like that is a thing that really puts us in a pickle. Right? Because a lot of us define our debt as our value, and we're constantly like, oh my God, my debt, ¿qué voy a hacer? Mis deudas. And then we still put things on the credit card. Now, if you're going to pay off your debt, if you're going to start this, I want to be debt free, I want to work on my finances, but my debt is consuming me, you really have to separate your emotion with your debt. Okay? Your debt served a purpose. Your debt does not define you. You got into debt because you were in survival mode. You didn't know any better. You were ignoring your finances and because of X, Y, and Z, and it's okay. Forgive yourself, first of all, okay? Forgive yourself for your past poor money choices. We are here with our debt. We are here. And we've probably seen our credit score take a downfall because of it, right? Like, we know the repercussions of this, or we're seeing it right now. We're feeling this anxiety. You know, we're always going to talk on mindset in every conversation that we have, because mindset is the power to everything. Once we start releasing our relationship with this debt, right? Because we're creating a relationship with money that's positive. We can't shame ourselves for having consumer debt, credit card debt, or student loan debt, okay? We cannot shame ourselves or feel guilty for having this because it happened, all right? It happened for a reason. Maybe you didn't understand it. Maybe you weren't financially aware. Maybe you weren't making income. Maybe you're struggling financially to make ends meet. Maybe you're trying to get a job and you had to use your credit card. You know, things happen in life. But the thing that's really important is that we realize that debt is neutral. Debt does not control us. Debt does not define our value. Debt is not a bad thing, because the rich people, they call it leverage. They don't call it debt. They call it leverage, because they're constantly using debt in their favor so that they can make more money. But here, as a consumer, as individuals, because we're not at those levels, because we're not doing those things like maybe buying homes, starting businesses, etc., we are over here using our credit cards because we can't make ends meet, right? We know it's a systemic problem sometimes because we can't make that income because of salary, wages, and the jobs and services, levels of education, etc. But when we see debt as neutral, we remove our relationship, our anxiety, our stress, our shame. Say, you know what? This debt served me a purpose, and it's just a debt. Okay. Yes, I'm paying 20% interest, 18% interest, 15% interest, 30% interest, hopefully not. But when you're at these levels of interest rates, right? And it can get overwhelming because you're like, damn, like, what do I do? What do I do? Da, 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 right? I want you to release your relationship with that debt. And you know what? I'm going to create a plan. I forgive myself for what I've done. I accept that I am here today, but I'm going to create a plan. I'm going to establish a game plan to pay off this debt, because if we constantly feel anxious about our debt, we're getting nowhere. Anxiety is getting nowhere. Action is what's going to get us somewhere. And when we create a plan, we actually reduce our anxiety and we get started. Same way with budgeting and everything like that, and every process of money. If we actually take action, we can reduce our anxiety and stress over debt or saving, whatever, investing, because we realize that money is just neutral. It's a tool. This debt is neutral. It does not control us. It served its purpose for some reason, right? Whether it was for school, whether it's for personal reasons, your car, etc. Like, things happen in life. It's okay. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey with debt, because I think it's important to give it, you know, that touch of why I know. So I was in $40,000 of credit card debt in 2018, 2019, not that long ago. I got there because of lifestyle creep. Which lifestyle creep means is that estás aparentando. You're spending more than what you actually have. You are using your lifestyle to hide the reality of where you're at. So you're constantly traveling, constantly spending, blah, blah, blah. So in these years of my life, when I started my career at GS, I had this version of myself that I wanted to be, right? And I wanted to step into that. But financially, I wasn't making a lot of money. The most I ever made at Goldman was $72K. That was my last salary, my last promotion. That's what I got. And at the end of the day, I remember my income was about like $5,000 a month, or so, like $4,500 to $5,000, depending on the overtime. And I had so much debt that like half of my, like one paycheck would go just to credit cards. It would just go to everything that I owed. And I couldn't sustain that forever. So I had like a coming to Jesus moment. And I was like, Leah, there's a few things that you can do here. You either sit in this anxiety and you stress about how you're going to make ends meet, because literally one paycheck goes to all your credit cards and the other one is what you're supposed to live off of. And your mortgage, at that point in time, I had a home, your mortgage is equivalent to one paycheck. So where's the rest going to come from, right? And that's how we increase more debt when we are spending above our means, or when we have so much debt that we don't have even enough for our lifestyle and like groceries and essentials and stuff like that, then we're getting into more debt. So here I am, I'm like, Leah, ¿qué vas a hacer? You have so much debt that you've done because of why? Which I had to result into going back to my money story and understanding my money script, which a money story is like an experience that you've had, a traumatic experience, or maybe a good experience that has taught you something about money that you tell yourself all the time. For example, my money script was debt es malo back then. You can know everything about finances and not take action. I knew everything that I needed to do, but I didn't want to do it. I was so neglectful of my money. I wanted to separate myself from my finances, but it was creeping up and I knew it. And when I got to that point, I had to say, Leah, this is a time you make a shift. You know what you have to do. You can't live like this forever. Either you make more money and get a new job or get that raise that you were promised. Or second, you reduce your expenses, which you've pretty much done. Or you downsize your home, you figure that something out. You have to make a financial sacrifice here because this isn't sustainable. So I waited until compensation season to see if I would get paid enough. Even if I made an extra $1,000 through my large increase in salary that they had promised me, I was going to be like, oh my God, set. I can do this. I can pay off my debt in X amount of time. I'll be debt free. I don't have to worry about this. And I'm good. Like 2 years paying this off, not bad. Well, come to be when compensation season came, I was told that my salary went up like $4,000, $5,000, but I had a bigger bonus, but it was like $10,000. And I was like, wow, that's like an extra $100 per paycheck or something like that. I did the math. And I was like, $100 isn't going to do me anything. I was supposed to get six figures and I went from 68 to 72. How am I supposed to sustain myself with this? And I had to make a financial sacrifice. I had to sell my home. That was my only option. I had to sell my home. I had this home that I had bought. I lived there 2 years exactly. Literally, like I sold the house like 2 years and 1 month after. And I had to make a sacrifice and be like, you know what? I don't have any family here in Salt Lake City. I'm probably going to end up quitting my job, which I ended up pretty much quitting my job not that long after, but I didn't realize that was going to happen. I just decided that I was going to sell my home first. Then I sold my home. I sold my home. It was my first home. I loved my home. It was a townhome. It was my pride and joy. But the reason why I even got to credit card debt, I had to face that as well, was because I had a spending problem. I was a severe overspender. I constantly was buying furniture and things for myself. Amazon was at my door every single day. I was getting stuff ordered to myself every single day. And especially during the pandemic, because TikTok was like showing me so many ads, Amazon things that you need to buy, la, la, la. That was my algorithm. Those days I was spending. So I had to wake the F up and I was like, Leah, you have to face your finances. If you plug this into your debt payoff calculator, because I have a debt payoff calculator, what's your solution? There's no solution here. Like the numbers weren't mathing, okay? Because I didn't make enough money. And so I had to move in with my parents, sell my home, and with the equity that I made from my home in those 2 years, thank God it was a good year to sell, I used that money to pay off my debt. Now, I was blessed. I was lucky. This is like the best case scenario, worst case scenario for me in my life, but I didn't have to ask anyone for money for my debt. I'm so grateful for that. I didn't have to do a debt consolidation loan. I did not have to use debt relief, or I didn't have to file bankruptcy, which these are things that I'm going to quickly dive into. Now, that was my experience. And I had to really work on my mindset and be like, bitch, you got to figure this out because there's no other option. So for those who are in this mentality of like, there is no other option, or you're about to get to this point where you're like, there is about to be no other options. This is why we need to separate our anxiety and shame and guilt from our debt and create an action plan. Okay, because there is going to be no other option to do it. Because at this point in time, if a recession comes or if interest rates keep going up, you're only going to be paying more interest to these banks and institutions over time, one. And two, how are you going to protect your family and yourself if a recession comes, you lose your job, you can't pay off your debt, so it goes to collections and it ruins your credit? That's the reality. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick few tips on how to navigate this whole debt scenario. Having debt is okay. It's normal. A majority of Americans have debt. Okay, currently in this point in time, you are okay. You are not special because you have debt. No one's going to judge you. Okay, if anything, you're just like one of us. I currently have some credit card debt because I moved. So I have credit card debt too. I'm trying my hardest to pay it off. I literally had a talk with Zany. I was like, Zany, we need to make extra money so we can pay this off because I ain't doing this interest no more. I'm so tired of it. So I mentioned a few things. The first thing that I want to talk about is with your debt, you can do a balance transfer. If you don't have a lot of credit card debt and you have a decent 600, 700 credit score, you can apply for a credit card that offers a balance transfer offer, which means that you would transfer the balance off your credit card to that credit card with a 0% interest rate for X amount of time. It might be 6 months, a year and a half, just depends on the card. That is an option. Okay. If you have a good credit score, the chances of you getting approved are higher and you can move it over 0% interest. You can avoid the 18, 20, 25% interest rate. Second option is a consolidation loan, like a personal loan. This is where you consolidate all your loans. Let's say it's a balance of $15,000. You would get a personal loan for $15,000 to pay for those credit cards to get paid off. It would be a lump sum payment. Okay. It'd be one payment a month of like $400, whatever it is that you decide, and you have an interest rate. The only reason you should do that if your interest rate is less than what you're currently paying. Okay. If it's a 10% interest rate loan versus, a 25% interest rate on your credit cards, that's saving you money. But if it's offering the same amount of interest rate for your consolidation loan versus what you have in your credit cards, on your credit cards as an interest rate, it's not going to be worth it, because why would you want to continue paying the same amount of interest on a loan? Like, no. So another thing to point out, it's really important that you have a good credit score in order to do these things, because if you don't, the chances of you getting approved are less, and then it would impact your credit score. But I mean, it would come back up over time, but that's something to pay attention to. Okay. If you have a credit score around 650 to, 800s, it's better chances of getting approved. From a balance transfer, consolidation loan, the next option is a debt relief program. Now, debt relief programs are known for scamming. So that's one thing that I just be mindful of. If the ones you see online are ads, just be very careful and do your research, do your due diligence and Google them, make sure they're Better Business Bureau. There's also credit repair individuals who have studied credit law, and they can help you as well. Debt relief programs are going to help you negotiate your debt to a lower amount. The only thing that comes with a caveat here is that you will have to send your debt to collections. And then they will negotiate that debt in order to reduce the debt that you owe. And then you pay them back plus a fee. Usually is less than what you owe entirely in the interest rate. The only issue here is that your credit score, down, will not come back up for a while, until you would probably have to work with a credit repair individual to help you bring back your credit, to send letters to the agencies, the bureaus, to try to take them off your credit report if possible. Okay. There's a few options. So that's debt relief program. Again, be very careful, do your due diligence. Then there's also hiring a professional to help guide you to get these items off your credit report, as well as if you have any collections, or as well as helping you pay off your debt. Now, if you're like, okay, Leah, I hear you. I'm going to try balance transfer. Make sure that interest rate is 0%. Make sure it's going to save you some money, or you're going to do a consolidation loan, whatever. I think it's important that you plug these numbers into strategies, into a debt strategy plan. Okay. A debt strategy plan is going to help tell you when and how long it's going to take you to pay off your debt. There's two debt payoff methods, okay, that are very, very popular. We have one, the debt snowball method, and the debt avalanche method is the second one. The debt Snowball is all about paying all your minimum payments, but the one with the lowest balance, you're going to make that extra payment to. So let's say you have $1,000 that you pay towards credit card debt. You're going to put an extra $500. This is just an example, okay? You'll make the minimum payments to all your credit cards. The extra $500 that you're putting towards your debt will go to the one with the lowest balance. And then once you pay that off, you use that chunk of money, you use it for the next credit card with the lowest balance, okay? Now, the avalanche method is very similar, except for it's about interest rate instead of the balance. So you're going to pay the one with the highest balance first and trickle over that to the next credit card with the highest balance, etc. Okay, same methodology except for interest rate. Now, this avalanche method is supposed to save you money, and it does save you money on the interest rate over time that you pay, the interest that you pay over time. But the snowball method is all about your mindset. I feel like that you feel rewarded every time you pay off a credit card with the lower balance. I personally usually go through the snowball method first because it just mentally makes me feel better, as well as my clients love that as well. The amount of money you save in interest is not that much. It could be like $500 that you'll save depending on your interest rates. It could save you a lot if you have a lot of different ranges of interest rates. So please, please, please do the math. The way you're going to do the math is you're going to go on Google and you're going to Google snowball debt calculator, avalanche debt calculator. Super simple. There's free calculators online that can help you. Okay. They might not give you the full math, show you how it happens, but it will give you the results that you need, which is important. All you need to know, and you can even do this by yourself at home. It's all about making sure you have a set amount of money that you're putting towards your debt. You say, you know what? My total minimum payments is this. Okay. You do the snowball method. Let's use that as an example. My total minimum payments is this. Okay. I have an extra $500 that I can put towards my debt on top of my minimum payments. Okay. Then you would calculate, okay, well, X amount goes to this card, X amount goes to this card, and then the extra amount goes to this card. Once you've paid that card off, you move on to the next one. And that's creating a debt strategy plan. Usually, based on my clients and the amount of times I've done this, you can pay off your debt using these methods in 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 years if you have a lot of debt. That is better than putting all your debt into collections and then trying to recover your credit over time like that. I'd rather do that than this case scenario. But again, it's really circumstantial. Finances are personal for a reason. So I want you to make sure you run your budgets and see how much extra money you can put towards your debt. I want you to make a list of all your debts, all your minimum payments, the APRs, the amount you owe. Make a list, keep track of that, and run these through the calculator. And remember, debt is neutral. This does not define you. Remember the statistic that I gave you. There's $1 trillion of consumer debt as we speak. And a majority of Americans have credit card debt because of inflation, because of where we've been at. Because salaries aren't matching. The minimum wage for the United States is still $7.25. That hasn't even changed. Just to give you, more context. So I want you to know you're not alone. Tu valor no depende de tu deuda, de tu balance de tus deudas. Tu valor no depende del dinero que tienes en tu cuenta bancaria. Your value is much more than that. And we're all on this journey together. We're all trying to pay off our debt. We're all trying to figure it out. It's a process. It's a journey. I want you to know that we can disconnect our value and our worth from our debt, create a plan to pay it off. If we've created this plan and we're paying it off monthly and we're doing it and we're staying consistent, why do we have to stress and worry about it? If anything, we should feel more empowered to make extra sources of income to pay that off faster. If anything, I deserve to fight for my salary. If anything, I'm going to apply for a new job. It's all about your income, and it's all about how you're managing your expenses, and it's all about creating a plan to relieve that anxiety. Again, this is not your value. Your debt does not define you. If you create a plan, you can pay it off. Yeah, we don't have to worry about it. There's already a plan. You can have debt, you can still save, and you can invest all at once. Okay, we don't have to be perfect. I feel like we live in a society where we want things done like this. Shit happens. Gotta take our time. Now, thank you for listening to Riqueza podcast. I hope you learned something today. I hope you realize that we're on this journey together. Okay, that's really what I want to share, is that we're on this journey together. Our debt does not define us. So make sure you share this episode with a bestie, a prima, tío, tía, your mommy, your daddy, whatever. Make sure to follow Riqueza podcast on Instagram. Make sure you rate us, give us a review, subscribe to YouTube, and stay tuned because I have a few workshops coming out this month. So make sure you join our newsletter and join our community. You can find those links in the podcast notes. Thank you, mi gente. Thank you for listening to mi Riqueza podcast. I'll see y'all next time.